He's kind of like the Joe Rogan of the hospitality industry right now.
All right, Slick Talkers. So the last decade of my life has been, I would say, a roller coaster of challenges, a lot of growth and transformation. And as I step into this next decade, I've made one of the biggest decisions of my life, and that's choosing to go fully sober. Now, I know a lot of you listen to this podcast for great interviews, hospitality-focused content. You've probably been seeing some changes on Slick Talk on Apple and Spotify, and maybe even hearing some different type of conversations I've been wanting to go down with my guests. And that's all for a reason. But this isn't just a personal change for me either. It's a big part of the vision for how I live, for how I love, and for how I lead. And today I'm sharing on how that vision ties into the exciting changes happening here on the podcast. And of course, across hospitality.fm as an entire podcast network or multimedia network now. So I want to set some expectations. In this short episode, I'm going to be taking you behind the scenes of what has been happening in my life, why I've chosen sobriety as a long-term commitment, not just as dry January or a certain time period, and how it's also shaping the future of not just this podcast, but again, the network across Hospitality FM as a whole. So I'm really excited for this little personal episode. I hope this is something that hits home for you guys. So without further ado, let's begin.
You're listening to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, a podcast for those who are in and around the hospitality industry who love, live, and breathe what they do. You can join us for candid and unscripted conversations with hospitality experts and founders as we go deeper into their personal stories while they're sharing their triumphs and trials that got them to where they are today. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and you're listening to an episode of Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. Now, let's begin.
So, as I said, you probably don't tune into this podcast for the personal Will story of all these things. And if you've heard me on other podcasts, you've heard my journey of how after I got out of high school, I struggled with homelessness and addiction. And then I joined the military. I also was a Christian or became a Christian during that time. And then, of course, the famous story of I was supposed to go to Bible college and become a pastor, which all was and is true, right? I was on that path. I went to Bible college for about 3 or 4 months, and I dropped out pretty quickly as I continued to struggle with, addiction and addictive personality and mental health and depression and just, stuff I've shared, especially with people like Dave Krause and many of you in the industry who actually know this side of my story. But I'm getting close to turning 30, and I hate sharing my age because people assume either I'm older or I'm way younger or vice versa. And it definitely has changed the way some people talk to me because, they hear an age number and think, oh, you're young and dumb or immature or whatever. And very much true if you see or saw how I acted at some conferences under the influence of alcohol and other substances. And, as I'm getting close to turning 30, I kind of sat down and was like, and this was also not a very quick decision. This happened over quite a few months of last year. 2024 was a tough, but also good year, right? Like we made it through another year of business. But financially, business was hard. It took 7, 8, 9 months for some deals to close and the long sales cycles and, trying to grow, but not grow too quick. And we're not, funded by any, investors or VCs or private equity groups. It's all based off of revenue from the show or revenue from other shows in the network. And so, last year I was really struggling with my mental health and obviously drinking and smoking weed and just being high all the time and just going down the path of where I was, which was very numb. I would wake up, I would be high, I would drink to continue that numbness. Never had a night out where it was 1 or 2 cocktails. There's always 10 or 12. which again, as many of you know, like I like to have fun. I like to go dance and be part of people and with big groups and very social. But it was a very important decision as it became to the point where I could not get out of bed. There was a couple weeks in November, December, even October, right around VRMA, where it was just all a mask, and I was just hiding the pain and the lack of drive, the lack of vulnerability. And so, building up over the last couple of months of 2024, I knew there was going to be some changes had to be made, and it was always lingering. And for people that are listening, I don't want to make this super faith focused, but I could almost kind of feel a feeling in my chest. Those of you who are Christians probably know that feeling when you're feeling convicted, and it was sitting with me for so long, and I was just struggling with it. And for me, it finally got to the point where I needed to make the decision of going completely sober, completely clean. Obviously, as I said, I'm turning 30, and I felt like this is kind of a point of reflection where I need to sit and look at the last decade and realize there's a lot of stuff in that decade I'm not proud of. There's a lot of stuff that I said, I did, I didn't do. The amount of embarrassing moments that I had because of alcohol and my just approach with substances. And so, going through that, it's like, okay, I'm turning 30. I want a family. I want to be married. I want to find my future wife. I want to have kids. I want to be an amazing father. I want to be an amazing husband. I want to be an amazing family man, an amazing business owner. And basically everything that I was doing this last decade did not lead into me becoming that man and becoming that business owner that I want to be. And so I sat down and was like, okay, if I want these things, I need to change. I have to make some big changes. I need to get healthy. I need to get healthy in not just physical health, which was deteriorating. I need to get healthy spiritually and mentally, emotionally. I need to seek help for some of the issues I've avoided the last decade. And so, I've been caught in these cycles. Like I was moving forward, but still held back by patterns I couldn't shake. So choosing sobriety wasn't an overnight decision. Like I said, it was a process built up over time. And finally, I've reached this point where I knew enough was enough. And I had to make this change to truly live, love, and lead the ways I've envisioned. So, the future of Slick Talk, I want to kind of talk about this is I want to see these changes impact the show. As I've reflected, I want to show up in my life. I want to, show up in the show a lot more. And it's also, it's not just about hospitality anymore for me. Slick Talk has been around almost 7 years. It's about people who make the industry. It's the stories behind the businesses, the struggles, the wins, the lessons we can all learn from. And, the outline, I want to be clear, like I'm not going to move away from interviews, but I want to get more focused and intentional around the content and the personal and professional growth that these entrepreneurs and business owners are going through themselves. I posted something on my Instagram about choosing to go fully sober for the rest of my life and how I want to live the next decade. And I had over 150 responses in my DMs of people that struggled through the same thing. And this is where I get a little emotional because, there was a lot of vulnerability in that. And there's a lot of trust in what people shared. And for me, it blows my mind on how a lot of us went through this silently. And that's also kind of one of the worst parts about mental health and addiction and other things that I don't think we talk about. There's a lot of us that chose to go through it in silence. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of us don't talk about, which, really blows my mind on how we've all chosen to go through it silently. And I had friends, Megan Moylan's a great friend, and I was at her wedding in November. And the whole time outside of the wedding events, I did not want to get out of bed. And yet no one they're new. So like I said, the outline, structure, and changes happening inside Slick Talk, I want to dive deeper into the intersection of business and personal transformation within hospitality professionals and business professionals across the world. It just blew my mind that 150 people in less than a day shared similar stories of struggles that, I feel like shouldn't have to be shared alone or be suffered alone. And so, obviously we're still going to do interviews, but I also want to have a balance of high level insights with real human stories. So I know a lot of you have carried on and listened for, almost maybe the full 7 years we've been around, if not a good chunk of time. And for me, interviews are still going to be the core, but I also want to make Slick Talk something that can be where I have a platform to share more. Hospitality FM's mission and drive is about amplifying voices. And I want to continue to do that. And one of those voices is mine. I feel like, I finally do have a voice. And it's crazy to say that after 7 years of leading hundreds of episodes and interviews and, thousands of hours of conversations. And so I also want to share what's happening across Hospitality FM. The exciting part is that these changes don't stop with just the show. Like I said, Hospitality FM has grown an incredible network of creators, of storytellers and leaders, and we're evolving to take things to the next level for them. So sharing some key updates for anyone listening is new shows will be rolling out that we're creating and signing these new creator multimedia deals. We're no longer just a podcast network, by the way. So podcasting is still to our core. Video and audio are still to our core. But there's a bigger ecosystem inside of Hospitality FM and inside of a creator's journey that is so complicated while they're also trying to manage a business of hotels or vacation rentals or technology that they've built. And so we want to help the creators from the whole cycle of that journey. We're integrating more personal and professional industry-wide themes across the network. So we're not just going to be short-term rental focused as a lot of people imagine us to be. We're going to go more into hotels. We're going to go more into food and beverage and overall travel. We're going to collaborate with a lot of new partners, as you're going to hear on this show. Companies like Send Squared and Fido and Well and Good and Bestie AI, all these companies, Top Key. There's a bunch of brands that we are excited to work with. Some also in the bigger business ecosystem, which would be, let's talk about Marriott Homes and Villas more, who's a great partner of ours across the network. And there's just so much for us to look forward to. And then, of course, what people may not expect us to do is we're launching new line items of business. So Hospitality FM is no longer, like I said, just podcasts. We have podcast production services. So if you're thinking about starting a show, we can literally walk you A to Z, the whole process, and take on the biggest headache of running a podcast, which is editing, content, clipping, posting, scheduling, coordinating, writing, etc. And really excited about new items of our business outside of advertising. So there's still advertising opportunities within the network. But really going deeper with our creators, like I said, and offering more. So a lot of our creators put on their own events or want to put on their own events and retreats. And we're going to power that with Hospitality FM events coming out this year. A lot of our creators have launched their own books and have made their own self-publishing deals happen through the things that are out there. And we want to power those authors. We believe amplifying voices through more than just audio, through the written word as well. And so HFM Publishing is coming out this year. Our new website is getting ready to launch. A lot of this will be showcased. And we're just so excited to become a multimedia network rather than just a podcast network where people can go to be educated and entertained. We really want to live that up to the core. So here's kind of a call to action. I want you guys to join in on this journey with us, not just for Hospitality FM and the evolution. If you've ever felt stuck in cycles like I have in business or life, I invite you to join, by reaching out and communicating with me. I want to include you into our community. I want to follow along with your journey. I want to hear about what you are doing. I want this to be a two-way street, not a one-way street. The hardest part about podcasting for me is that it's so one way. You guys are listening to me. I have the mic. I can't hear you. You can hear me, but I want to hear you. So if you are wanting to connect more, this is my deepest, like most sincere call to action. Please just reach out to me. I'm not scary. I've heard people say like, that have been super fans or whatever that, they're like, oh, I just didn't want to bug you. Like, please bug me. Please. I want to connect with people. This is the reason why Hospitality FM for me is such a fun and joyful business to build, is because of the voices and the creators and the relationships. The team, I get so excited and I get like getting emotional again, but we have such a great team of people that I care about very deeply. And I just think it's such a great opportunity for us to move forward in this light. And I'm trying not to ramble, but if you've made it this far in the episode, trust me, this is just the beginning for changes on Slick Talk, for changes in the network, for changes on how we do business. And I want you to be a part of that. So in the next episode, you're going to hear more interviews. You're going to hear more of this, but I'm also going to sit down and I'm going to break down some topics and trending industry things that maybe aren't made for Good Morning Hospitality or made for LinkedIn, but can be, turning Slick Talk into a platform that can be greater for bigger conversations. And I'm just so thankful for all of you who've decided to be a part of this journey and to tune in and to support the show and support the network. I couldn't be more thankful. So before I sign off, thank you, Slick Talkers. I love calling you that. It's such a fun community of people who I have just been so blown away by. To all of our guests in the past, thank you. And I can't wait to hopefully have you back on. And yeah, I just am so thankful for this industry, as it's a true industry of people and focusing on just the human connection and moments and powerful things that transform lives, vacations that make lasting memories and help heartaches and help love blossom, or whatever the scenario that's happening inside of our homes or our hotels and our restaurants and inside of our companies. I think this is such a blessing and such a special opportunity for all of us. So thank you. From myself to you, for the Slick Talkers who have been with me for 7 years or more, or not more, but who have been with me for a period of time, whether it's the full 7 years or not. Thank you. Seriously, this show has been such a big part of my life, and I'm so excited for it to be part of the next decade as I continue to move forward and grow and evolve. For those who are maybe curious and made it this far, by the time of this episode recording, I'm already about 30 days in to sobriety. So I'm already feeling really good, feeling at peace, and really comfortable with the decision and the promise that I've made to stick to it. So this is a public display of accountability. This is an open platform. And yes, business is great, but there's more to it than just business. And so that's it. Thank you. And we'll see you guys all on the next episode.
Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our show partners for making Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, possible. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we would love to connect with you outside of the podcast. So you can follow us on all of our social media channels for daily hospitality content, or find us on slicktalkthepodcast.com. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and we will see you guys all again next week.